Welcome, everyone. Now we can start. I see we have many people joining from around the world, and we are going to do a very interactive webinar today. My name is Michael. I'm part of the Omdena team. I'm responsible for marketing and community, and we're going to talk today about competitions versus collaborative projects. And we have 6 people as panelists, and all of them come from pretty different backgrounds. So we have people who have more than 20 years of experience in software engineering. We have junior machine learning engineers. We have data scientists. And we're going to make it a very interactive session where you can ask your questions and where we will go through questions along the discussion, but also in the end. And we are going to go through 4 different themes. And we will start with what are actually competitions and what is the value of competitions? So that's the first question that I want to ask. And if you have questions in the audience, please feel free to write them in the chat below. And in the end, you can also join via audio and via video if you want, and you can join the discussion. So first question, what are competitions and what are the values of competitions? So this question goes out to our panelists. Who wants to jump in and capture the stage?
Yeah, I can go first. So hi, everybody who's on the call and wasn't here before. My name is Eric Golinkin. I'm from the United States. I'm an artificial intelligence researcher. So competitions are usually the best known competitions in data science are the Kaggle competitions, right? I think that just about anybody in data science in the last 10 years has been exposed to Kaggle. And for a lot of people, that's their first exposure. And so the idea behind data science competitions is either independently or in a small team, coming up with the best machine learning or the best predictive model for a particular data set. Usually there is a public data set and a private data set. So the public data set is a data set where you can train your model and test against it. And then there's a withheld data set, a private data set, which is what your model is ranked against, right? And the goal of these competitions is usually to, have the model that best predicts the target data set, that withheld data set, and compete, as the name implies, against other individuals or teams who are trying to do the same thing. So it's very much a, controlled environment where the data is provided to you. There are right answers. And then, your goal is to do better than everybody else, to win money or accolades or just to feel good,
Thanks, Eric. So the idea here is to really understand what kind of models are out there, what is a competition, what is also a hackathon, and also what is the value of competitions and hackathons, and then compare it with collaborative projects, because collaboration is a concept that becomes more and more important and more people are speaking about it. And I want to make sure that we cover all aspects. So what are values for you in terms of competitions? What is beneficial in being part of a competition?
Great. Hi, everyone who is tuned in for the conversation. This is Kennedy Wangari. I'm a junior data scientist at Safe Border. It's based in Kenya. I'm also an AI community leader, supporting and also building and empowering various AI ecosystems and hubs across Kenya and also across the globe as a deep learning.ai ambassador. And also getting to add some few things, or on the same, you get to realize that when you take part in competitions, there are a few things that the competitors get to benefit from. That is looking at what value do you get from, and one of them is that you find that these participants get to learn some of the new and latest trends, modern AI techniques that the competitors get to use. So that is one way you get to, you are exposed to what other techniques are out there and what techniques did the winners get to use. And also as a participant in the hackathons and these competitions, it also helps you to build up your code base, that is your report of functions, getting to know how did they manipulate the data, which so it basically helps you to be able to build up your own code base. And also for a new beginner who is starting off to take up competitions and in moving into the competitive world, it also gives them a sneak peek understanding of what kind of competitions, what kind of problems are being solved in the industry, because you look at some of these competitions that are hosted, some of these hackathons are, I would say, are almost similar to the kind of problems you would solve in the business setting. And it also gives you that experience playing around with the various metrics that the competitors and the hosting organization used. So it also helps you to be able to gain that experience with the various metrics and where the appropriate places to use. And when you compare the value of the hackathons and also involving yourself in collaborative projects like what Omdena does, you get to realize that much of what takes place in the competitive world is highly abstracted. By that I mean that when you're getting into most of these competitions, that is the hackathons and the data science competitions, many other times that you find that you already have a well-set problem, a business problem, and that is already well defined. And as Ali mentioned, you also get to find there is already a data set, that is the data set that is already available for the public for the public leaderboard, and also the private data set. And you realize that in most of the real world setting, that is not the real case. So you find that one disadvantage with taking up these competitions is that it highly abstracts most of what we could say the core components of data science and machine learning processes, because most of these competitions are all around building machine learning models. But in real life, and the real work of a data scientist doesn't wholly rotate around building machine learning models. And also taking part in these competitions, it does not give you that permission to maybe, like in real world, where you would maybe need to get data, gather data from external sources, go back and refine your business problem, and all other activities that you would do for a real world project. So you find that is one of maybe the limitations, that when you're taking part in these competitions, it limits you, that you don't have that room to be able to get to even refine the business problem. You're only constrained with what you have and work with the data that you have. And also, again, most of these competitions, you get to realize that these winners, the people who win these competitions, they usually implement highly sophisticated and also complex machine learning models and techniques. But when you look at real life projects and also collaborative projects, because you're looking at the concept of building up collaborative projects so that they can be implemented to be able to create positive impacts for the community, you realize that in real world setting, most of the solutions, the AI solutions that get deployed are simple, and also the kind of models that are deployed, they're what we call parsimonious, or models that you can be able to explain, be able to debug, be able to work on them. So that is what I could say, comparing the competition side, the value of what you get from the competitive world, and also the cons of just taking part in the competitive world versus the collaborative approach of building machine learning projects.
Thanks, Kennedy. Somebody wants to add to this.
David here. Hello, everyone. David from Warsaw, Poland. And I think one important thing to note here is just a few words, a few cents from me is just we have to be very clear about what we say about the real world, yes, because there are companies that in the real world that are working on highly sophisticated algorithms in the for example, NLP area, yeah? And I guess they find it very interesting, very informative, these kind of competitions when these highly sophisticated models are used. And the real world, meaning the business world, yeah, where companies would be rather purchasers of the products of those advanced analytics companies, yeah, and in the real world, and I fully agree with what has been said so far. But me, I understand real world, the real business companies in finance, in transportation, etc. Yeah, these are really companies that in this real world it looks a little bit different. Yeah?
Thanks, David. That's a good point. So let's define what means real world. So in which cases, and you already touched on it, in which cases is a competition brings in a lot of value, and in which cases we need to look into alternative approaches. How would you define this?
Basically, you know, I don't know if you will share my point of view, but I think competitions in the past years have been a very good place to showcase the, I wouldn't like to say scientific advancement, because even George Hinton, yeah, the creator or a person behind some discoveries in the area of machine learning, yeah, he has criticized it a little bit. I don't want to delve into this area right now, but it was very good place to showcase a new algorithm. And I don't know if you have seen that sometimes the scientific advancement that is going sometimes overlaps with what is being shown on the what's on the first page of the competitions. Yeah, and sometimes these competitions are won by the person on teams that have already been engaged into these areas and they have made already some discoveries or inventions. Yeah, so in this respect, yeah, the competitions are very good, and in such cases, this is a really good place to showcase and to show to the world, yeah, that this is what I have been working on, and this is a good place that we can start and continue. Yeah?
So somebody wants to add to what David said.
Hey, yeah, possibly. I would like to add few. Hey, this is Murli here. I'm a software architect working for a telecom company. I drive data science activities in my company for the last couple of years. So I participated in Omdena in the couple of years before, and I have got quite a bit of exposure to data science from that. So that's why I like Omdena a lot. And when this opportunity came, I said, yes, I will do it. Now, back to the point of discussion. Another point I just want to bring in here is not to say that the collaboration is only better or competition is always bad or anything of that sort. Both serves its own purpose. There is a need for both. There is a need for both in the AI space. Each serve a different use case to it, as people have spoke about before me. And that's another aspect I'd like to bring in here. With respect to competition, the way the competition works is that the data is a fixed point. The data is given, and you try to make much use of the data and see what you can do, more on top of it, squeeze the last bit out of it. But practically, what I have seen, the data is never a fixed point. The data also evolves. There's an iteration going in the data as well. So what typically we do is we take a first set of data, we just query from the database, we collect the data, and we run a standard set of model against it, and we evaluate both the data and the model at the same time. We'll see what is the problem in the data, how it can be improvised, where there is a redundancy in the data, what is conflicting. And both the team go back and improvise the data and the model. So there's an iterative way happening between the data and the model. Data and the model both has to match at one point to give a better result. So this iterative way of development, right, is pretty much missing in the competition, which pretty much is what in the real world scenario happens. Typically, a data science project cycle is 1 to 2 weeks. So we collect the data, we evaluate the model. Within the 2 weeks, we go for another iteration, right? So that iterative model is what generally gives results. So this is kind of a bit lost in the kind of a competition or hackathon perspective. But it has its advantages. I just want to reiterate, not that it is good or bad, both are required. We have to understand where it helps and use it accordingly. That's my perspective to it.
Thank you, Murli. Somebody else wants to add to this?
Yes, hello, Anastasis, a data scientist from Greece. I made the transition from civil engineering 2 years ago to data science. And I have to say, I couldn't agree more. Competitions are a very specific practice for a very specific set of data science skills, quite useful, quite sexy, I have to say. Some of these skills are what got many of us into data science, but they need to be handled with care. I think they are an opportunity to actually build on certain skills without having to take into account the rest of the issues. But as soon as you build those skills, then maybe it's time to go back to the real world, as David said, and also look at the bigger picture and try to get all the other skills that will make you a well-rounded data scientist.
Thank you, Anastasis. If there's somebody else who wants to add to this theme, otherwise we will move into the concept of collaboration and we'll go deeper into this. All right, so now we have been talking a bit about competitions, and we touched already on what are differences between competitions and collaborative projects. But I want to start with what means collaboration for you. Collaboration can mean a lot of different things, but in the context of data science, of AI, what is for you a collaborative project? What are the ingredients of a collaborative project and maybe even team? What are your experiences there?
Possibly I will go first. To me, the collaboration is all about teamwork. A teamwork also needs some bit of a planning, need a bit of understanding. And it needs a high level strategy. Just like a team cannot just go in and then win a soccer game. They need to have a gameplay in place. They have to try few strategies, see how it works and all that. So the collaboration is a way in which you exchange ideas, get feedbacks, try out new approaches, and then you learn how to get to the end result in the most efficient way, and also meet to the requirements of the use cases as well. So collaboration is all about teamwork and team effort and understanding people there. So that's a very key factor in any practical scenarios. So that's where I see it's a more valuable thing there.
Yeah, I think that's that's a good description. One thing that I think is worth highlighting is that when we're really delineating collaborative versus competitive, is we want to make sure that we flag the fact that in something that we call a collaboration instead of a competition, right? You can compete with a team, but in a collaborative setting, that entire competitive aspect is removed. And so the really big difference there is, right, when you're collaborating, you don't necessarily have a leaderboard. You don't necessarily know how your algorithm ranks to what other people or teams are doing. You don't have any basis for comparison other than to compare against previous iterations of your own algorithm or other algorithms that you and your team have tried. So there's more of an emphasis on talking things through and making sure that your team is on the same page, and less of an emphasis on how am I stacking up against another team, right? If you have a challenge where You just simply can't find something that does better than, I don't know, let's say 70% accuracy. In a competition, you would know, oh, well, okay, I'm getting 70% accuracy, but nobody's really doing any better than that. When you're collaborating, you don't necessarily have that basis for comparison. You can only say, our team cannot find anything that does better than 70%.
Yeah,
So.
I fully agree with Eric. And one important to note here, David here again, that one important thing to notice, and that is very much important from the perspective of a business person that I've been working for over 15 years in advanced business analytics in the real world business. And Eric has mentioned that there is also a collaborative aspect within competition. Yeah, that we see that in competitions we have teams of people. Yeah, but one thing that I have noticed within the collaborative aspects in competitions is that usually you don't have time to teach other people. And in the teamwork, when you work in the business, I've seen people, I've seen teams, I've seen people growing and being better, but by spending times on explaining things and teaching people a new things within their area of expertise, correcting themselves, receiving questions, receiving new ideas, people growing faster in a collaborative environment. You have this in the collaborative area when you work on some projects. In competitions, you don't have it, but simply there is no time for that. And this is very important aspect for you as a person when you want to grow, yeah, in the area of expertise, and you want to grow as a person, yeah, a better person.
Yeah, to add to this, I remember Omdena shared on a video that the retention is higher when you explain something to someone in your field of expertise. And I had to explain some things during challenges to Yashika. Greetings if she's here. And yeah, I felt it was beneficial to me too.
So you're touching on an educational aspect of collaborative teams. So I would like to understand, what do you think, what are the most important skills that you have to learn that are relevant for a job, that are relevant as a data scientist from a career perspective? And how do you think competitions and also collaborations help to acquire those skills? And not only focusing on technical skills, but what we've seen in our challenges and projects is that non-technical skills are very, very relevant. So I would like to understand from you, what are those skills and how do you acquire them through competitions and collaborations?
Great. One thing I would say is that one skill that we all should strive to acquire is seek to gain that in-depth understanding of the business domain, because you get to realize that for the challenges that we're working on, whether it's in those competitions or it's in the collaborative setting, those problems hail from an area of specialization or a domain. So for you to be able to build a solution, it would be good for us to be able to gain that in-depth understanding of the field, because this helps us to be able to know more about the data and be able to build better solutions. And for us on how to be able to acquire this knowledge, one way we could cultivate is that we should strive, whether you're taking part in the competitions or in the collaborative setting, working on the specific problem, try to cultivate that habit of getting to read academic literature and also research papers in your area of specialization, and also for the specific problem, get to understand, get to acquire that knowledge from the research papers, the academic papers, and look at any latest trends, information around the same. And also another way that we can be able to acquire this domain understanding knowledge for any area of specialization is also through getting to talk with the people who are involved in that area. Let's say it's you working on a project in healthcare, get to talk with the people who are involved in that area of focus. And also because these people get to guide you, they'll also be able to give you more insights. And that's why I love the case setup of Omdena, because you get to work with domain experts. And also another way that we can be able to gain domain understanding and a better understanding of the field and the problems that we're trying to tackle is to also looking around the various, I would say, machine learning and also reading discussion groups, whether on physical setups and online. A good example is recently Lex Freddyman, who is a popular YouTuber, he launched an AI reading club on Discord. So if you'd really get to know how do you get to read and implement these research papers, how do you get to implement and reproduce these results? So like being in such kind of forums, maybe, or in your physical area or online, it helps you to be able to even engage with these people, get to learn more from them, and also collaborate with them. So those are the ways that I would say that from my end maybe would help you to have that a better understanding of the domain, the use cases, so that at the end of the day you're able to solve the specific problem in a data-driven way.
Yeah, fully agree. From my perspective, and as a person, hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. From a perspective of a business person and experience being a manager of various teams of 5 to 10 to 15 people, one area of collaboration and learning through collaboration that you don't get from competitions. And again, this is not only the so-called mild skills, yeah, this is also a hard skills, but I will start from the hard skills. Rarely ever in solving any business problem and trying to use analytics, rarely ever some higher advanced algorithm made any place. Usually highly elaborate algorithm failed, and some basic ones or a mixture of basic algorithm have been better. And especially this is true because every business analytical problem or any business problem that you try to apply, some methods that you have seen that probably should work, they never work. And from my perspective is also a problem of the distribution of data. Every data that you acquire, that you want, the analysis that you want to make and solve a problem, you have the data, you make decisions based on data. Yeah? Every data is different. Yeah? Even the similar sets of data, yeah, from the similar domains, yeah, two different problems and two different distributions, yeah. So different ways, the same algorithm, but they have to be applied differently. And this one thing that you can learn in the collaborative environment. Second thing is a mild thing, and this is very important thing. And companies are looking for that, and this is very hard to find an analyst with the mild things, yeah. And this is that your ability, your empathy, and being an empathetic person, and also a person that can collaborate and be in the teamwork, find himself good in the teamwork, because usually in the business problems, you find yourself working with people from finance or supply chain or from marketing. These people, they don't have a clue about what you are giving or what you are explaining to them. And ability to explain some difficult things like to your grandma is of paramount importance. And this can you can this in the competitive environment, you will not learn it. In cooperative environment, you're bound to have it, really.
And I think that's, oh, go ahead, Julia.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. I don't have much experience, around 2 years, But what I found difficult at the beginning was to communicate with, you know, some experts on the field I was working on, because you are developing products for them for a specific purpose, and if you don't interact with them in a good way, you never manage to deal with the project in the end, and it can be really frustrating.
They are the people that they have to make decisions based on your suggestions, yes, but your suggestions is not everything. Yeah, they need to understand why you are suggesting to them some kind of solutions. Yeah, and being able to explain it is not something that you can learn in the school. Yeah, you can only learn it by experience. Yeah, working with people, not necessarily from different area of expertise. Can be people from the same area of expertise, but with lower skills. Yeah, but by teaching them, understanding, you know, and explaining to them, you can also learn yourself by explaining to people from completely different area of expertise.
And especially in times like today, also touching on the remote aspect, being able to showcase that you can collaborate remotely with people from all over the world is a major soft skill.
Exactly.
And being part of an Omdena challenge, you really have to take the lead. Nobody's gonna assign anything to you. You have to speak up. Sometimes you might get to lead a task team as a task manager as well. You're gonna stand in there in the weekly meeting, present your work, get feedback from everybody, from even more experienced people. So all these are skills that play out well in the long term. And speaking about long term, this is another thing. A collaboration project usually lasts for about 8 weeks. This gives you enough time to have consistency in your practice. And consistency is key in building new skills.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that was said. And I think that, you know, the thing that we don't want to lose sight of is that collaborative projects build skills that you simply can't build in competition, right? Those data cleaning skills are a big one, data collection, data augmentation. Those are skills that are incredibly difficult to learn in a competitive setting. And of course, those soft skills, right? Communicating with other teams, teaching, learning from each other, because even if someone is more junior, they may have an insight into something, or they may have stumbled across something that as someone more senior, you simply wouldn't have seen before, right? And it can give you some useful and interesting perspectives that, you know, you may not read a beginner's tutorial that happens to contain a helpful shortcut that you simply weren't aware of. So there's definitely a lot of teaching one another and learning from one another. But to highlight the value of competition, it's, you know, it is difficult to ever use a crutch when you're in a competitive environment. And in some cases, even I kind of fall back on old habits, on familiar habits. I lean on my teammates because it's, you know, it's something I should do. It's something I know how to do, but it's something I just don't want. It's just not fun. It's boring. It's tedious, right? Like labeling. God, I don't want to label anything. Please don't make me label. And in a competition, you don't have to, right? You kind of can focus on, I want to learn how to implement this algorithm for this problem. And I don't have anyone to depend on to do it for me. I have to implement this algorithm. I have to read this paper, learn it, and implement it. I can't, you know, turn to Julia and be like, hey, can you do this part? Like, I don't really feel like doing a reverse pyramid network. That like sounds awful. So like I said earlier, and I think we've all said, there's value in both. And it's good to do both if you have the time and the energy.
Well, agree. So true.
Also,
Okay,
I'd like
Murli?
to add, sorry, yeah, I'll go ahead. So I also just want to add one more perspective to it. It may not look apparent, but I believe it's profoundly useful in a work environment. So the skill that we generally pick up knowingly, unknowingly doing collaborative project is basically a sense of a direction. Is the team as such going towards the goal or not? Are we just beating around the bush? That's a sense of direction is very crucial to move from point A to point B in any practical situations. So the way you would gain that experience is by trying out various options, uh, understanding many factors that you can read early in the cycle, and having a sense of confidence in your team, as well as understanding the background of the algorithm that is being tried. Is this going in the right direction or not? Will it give me the result as I want in the time frame we are looking at, in the resource requirements that I have, and all that? So that sense of direction you would naturally pick up when 10 people try different approaches, and you see them all, and out of 10, 3 or 4 will give you a good result for a particular problem, another will fail to some extent, a couple of them will miserably fail, to a greater extent. Then you would have a sense of idea what kind of an approach is going to suit what kind of a problem, and what are the early signs that you can read in a project, and you can make a right call at the right time, so that you don't waste your time on unknown, unwanted issues. So that's one of the key learnings I had working on collaborative environment that I believe would be profoundly useful.
Great. One thing that I've also come to appreciate and love from working in collaborative setting is that you get to realize that most of the challenges that are solved in collaborative settings are quite complex. And you get to find that one key common thing that trend amongst in most of these when tackling these complex problems is that the people involved tend to move out there to do more research on, are there any already existing use cases? Are there any maybe existing projects and solutions that have been built within the same problem domain? How have they been built? So you get to find that there's that going back to do more research to get to understand, looking at the specific domain area. Are there any use case studies from the various companies and different resources? How have they implemented their solutions, and how can we be able to, maybe what can we be able to learn from them? How did they operate their solutions, and how did they end up utilizing their solutions? So these learnings have really helped me to be able to get to improve my problem solving skill set, because it gives you that ability to and room for creativity to get to see, oh, okay, great. So this is how company ABCD implemented this. This is how these other organization implemented this, and how would we be able to implement and work what we have to be able to achieve our targets. So one thing I would say, this has helped to be able to improve what we'd call my case study and problem solving skill set. And it's something that I would encourage us also to cultivate that culture of when you're working on projects, get to do some extensive research, look at, are there any use cases of any practical solutions that have been built? What can you be able to derive and learn from there? And what can you be able to pick up and implement in your solution?
Yeah, just one point to note about the practical solution. We really should not shy away from the problems. I'm still speaking about the business real world, yeah? Shy away from the problems where simple solution really works. Believe me or not, I have worked with a lot of with the operations teams, working with the engineers. Most of them did not have an idea about the logistic regression, or the fact that why it's called regression, yeah, that they did not understand that just a simple transformation of the code domain from minus infinity to plus infinity to a range of 0, 1 or minus 1 to 0, 1, yeah. They didn't have this idea. A solution where you have applied logistic regression, and this could help make some suggestions, help people, they really work, and people will find it very useful and will be thankful to you. You don't have to apply, very complicated, recurrent neural networks that usually require a lot of computer power and provide, next to nothing in terms of, accuracy of solving real business life solutions.
Yeah. I think it also depends on what work is assigned to you. By this I mean like, for example, in my work, I have to develop some things that need to go into production. So yeah, I will choose some classical models, works well, but I have also more research part, or I mean more state-of-the-art work on some models. I work on NLP, by the way. So yeah, I think there is kind of trade-off between both to keep the work interesting,
Yeah, sure. There is a trade-off, but we shouldn't shy away. We shouldn't jump into, already state of the art. We should start small, yeah, and these things really work enough, yeah.
Every time. I mean, in a project, you have to try many models before, tuning. Also on learning, I think there are many ways to learn. And I remember a sentence from the Fast AI courses, you will learn how it works because why it works. I think some people tend to think like that and learn only by doing. And maybe some competitions are good for those people, and Omdena challenges, for example, because they need to step up and try things, and after they have got the community to help them. So yeah.
Thank you. I want to first of all answer a few questions, go into some questions, and then in the end what we will talk about quickly is considering the current situation, how do you structure your day? So I would like to ask you, what kind of tips and tricks do you have to prepare right now and try to make the best out of this time? But before we go into that, I want to go to the questions. And there's one question which is about how can a researcher with a lack of technical experience contribute in a collaboration? So I know that, Eric, you have a research background. You don't have a lack of technical experience, but how would you answer that question?
Yeah, that's actually, I had the chat open in the side and I saw that, and I'm glad that question got pointed at me. So yes, I have a technical background, but I didn't always have a technical background, right? Everyone on this call, everyone of us, right? All of the panelists, we weren't born knowing how to do logistic regression. We weren't born knowing how to write neural networks. So really the key is to be motivated, right? And if you join something collaborative instead of a competition, you can join a team, work with a team, and you'll have tasks that can be tuned to your level, and you can turn to people who are more senior and ask for help, right? I mean, as I mentioned earlier, labeling is incredibly helpful, incredibly useful, and incredibly tedious. But it also generally requires no real technical skill, right? I mean, the Omdena task that I engaged with first was the World Food Program Nepal crops data set, right? And one of the issues that we had is we didn't really have a lot of good labeled data. That was our biggest problem. And anybody could have labeled data, right? So we all chipped in a little bit to label data. And part of the advantage to that, right? Like, okay, great, it helps you, but how does it help me get better? When you're labeling data, what you're essentially doing is manually, as a human, performing the task that you want the AI to perform, right? So you want it to get an unlabeled image in the end and label it for you. That's kind of the goal, right? The crops are here, and it's wheat. So as you label the data, you kind of get a sense of what the AI should be doing, and then you can join one of the other task teams and say, hey, you know, how does this work? You have this neural network, it's taking in these images, it's outputting these bounding boxes and identifying that this bounding box contains wheat and this bounding box contains rice. How did that work? And somebody who's more senior can walk you through the code. And because it's collaborative, all that code is available to you. And so you can create your own branch and iterate on the code in your own way and play with it yourself and have that team to ask questions of. So just be motivated and join, right? We always need people to do, everyone can do something. And even if you don't have the technical skills, you can pick them up along the way. That's really the biggest advantage for someone junior joining those collaborative.
I want to chip in real quick because we have another question, and the question is about how do you deal with imposter syndrome, especially if you are just starting out in collaboration? Or I expand the question, if you're just starting out maybe in AI and data science, and we, as Eric said, nobody came to planet Earth with all the skill set that we have right now. So we are all work in progress. And imposter syndrome, if you don't know the term, it means that you, even though you might have accomplished a certain goals and you have a certain skill set, you think that you are a fraud or that you do not deserve your successes, or you think that anyone else is better and that you can't catch up. So do you have any experiences with this? Do you have any tips on this? Last week, actually, we had a webinar about imposter syndrome, so I can also say a few things. But if you have something to share on this topic, that would be valuable, I think.
Yeah. So exactly on that topic, my first Omdena challenge, massive imposter syndrome, I have to say. It was the Nigeria challenge, and we were dealing with map data, and I had never come across map data before in my data science endeavors. So I think the most important piece of advice, also coming from the previous webinar that you mentioned, Michael, is name it. You have to admit that it is there. Once it is there, then you can face it and you can make it go away. In a collaborative environment, that's quite easy because you have 50 peers that are there ready to support you, to help you, to mentor you, and from all different levels, people at your own level or more senior people. So for me, in the challenge, that was the answer I asked. I got my answers. I was able to contribute. And then I got the map skills from that challenge, and I applied them to our own environmental campaign back home, actually, with great results. So yeah, collaboration is, I think, one of the most suitable environments where you can overcome your imposter syndrome. We are all here to help.
Thanks, Anastasis. Somebody has to add to this. Then I will move on to a question.
Okay, on the same, I would say, in my case setup, when I took my first Omdena collaborative project, as last speaker has mentioned, I had this feeling that feeling like a fraud. I'll not be able to contribute and make any impactful contributions. But one thing that a few things that did help me was one, I would look at what is expected of, let's say, our task team. And then I would look at maybe these are the ABCD tasks that we needed to do. And I would strive to move up and try to familiarize myself with those skills. And where I could get stuck, I could now come to the platform and maybe seek the support. And also another thing that really helped me while I was also trying to bridge the gap and also trying to build up the skill set so that I can be able to contribute to the projects meaningfully was also getting to celebrate any single milestone. Let's say maybe we're supposed to do ABCD and I'm working on ABCD. I've been able to achieve 1, 2, 3 things. I'll be very happy with that. And as it's been mentioned, working in teams, because in that collaborative setting, you really get to learn a lot, and also it helps you to prove and to also affirm to yourself that you can really do this and you can be able to deliver impact to your project and also to your team.
One important thing to know, just a few cents from me very quickly, is that first of all, data science and machine learning engineering, it's a very wide field, and it's very easy to fall into the trap of imposter syndrome. Yeah, and the sheer vast amount of things to learn sometimes can be overwhelming and difficult to say if I ever have been through the imposter syndrome. However, I think that to overcome that is to overcome any big project or tasks that is so difficult that it overwhelms us, and it's important to plan for the long term, for next year or 2 years, and do not rush into many areas at one time. Just plan carefully and be patient and learn strategically. And second thing is that don't be afraid to make mistakes, and prove that you have made mistakes and make out the best of those mistakes.
Just to add, I didn't felt too much the imposter syndrome in Omdena's environment because it's a really caring environment, but I experienced it a lot of times since the beginning of my career. And yeah, I think we have to admit that we know nothing, but I mean, when you begin to learn a subject, you have this feeling. I think there are two types of people. There are people that who feel overconfident, and there are other people who feel kind of, not skilled enough to this. And at some point, these two types of people meet, and yeah, we all have to admit that we will never know everything about machine learning, and that's okay. And I think when you admit it, you can continue learning.
I think being overconfident is not good for collaboration. And if you are overconfident, probably you will not make it in Omdena. But if you feel like you're through in imposter syndrome, come to Omdena, and I think you can, get away with it.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being so open. When I have to add to this is basically what I can say is that what we already discussed is competitions per se are not bad. But obviously what happens is that in many of the countries that we are in many of the educational systems that we are in, competition plays an important role. So we somehow develop this mindset of comparing each other to other people. But what we forget is that we are all individuals and we all have a different context, we have different backgrounds. And the only thing that really matters is to compare ourselves to the person that we were yesterday, a year ago, 5 years ago. And when we do this practice more often, then we realize how much we actually grow and learn. And when we do this, then we can also move faster through obstacles, because we are not caught up in thinking about other people, but we think, okay, how can I progress? And we can get inspired by other people. So there's a difference between comparison and inspiration. We can get inspired and we can learn, but we have to have a very healthy self-evaluation methodology in place. So we don't have that much time left. So I want to ask you now about 1 or 2 things that you are applying right now. Maybe a tip, maybe a tactic in this time with regards to learning. Maybe you are acquiring a new skill, maybe you are doing something to prepare for your career, something that you are doing right now that you think could be valuable for other people in the call right now. And for the people listening right now, feel free to ask a few more questions. We can extend the call a few more minutes and I can pick a few questions. But in the meantime, what are you doing right now in this novel situation that we are all in right now?
I have the good fortune to still be working on lots of very interesting data science projects. So right now I have my server back there chugging away on a really, really hard problem. I'm actually working on taking in organization names and mapping them to technical indicators. So, you know, finding subsidiary companies, doing entity resolution. It's really an interesting problem that's kind of a combination of natural language processing and security, right? Information security. It's really challenging though, because the data sets are very heterogeneous. But you know, it's an exciting and interesting project, and it's good to stay engaged with something that's kind of really pushing the boundaries of my knowledge. So reading a lot of papers in fields that are sort of adjacent to the area where I'm most comfortable, and just kind of continuing to learn while I can't really go do anything.
Thanks, Eric. Somebody, I mean, that's a good point. Continuing to learn while we can't do that much, right? So it's a matter of where do we want to focus on. But I also know that it can be sometimes difficult to do this. So maybe there's somebody who has some sort of trick or strategy that you integrate in your day. Maybe there's a routine or a habit. Maybe you have interesting resources that you can share. I think there's also somebody who wants to join in. Mehul?
Great. From my end, I'm currently, aside from my projects at work and everything, I'm also involved with the ongoing coronavirus policy AI challenge at Omdena. And also, again, where this challenge is heavily focusing on how getting to understand the effects of these stringent policies on the economy and on the human lives, with special focus on the vulnerable communities. And aside from my current work and also my project contribution at Omdena, I've also formed a habit of ensuring that read a research paper and then take up the weekend, let's say like just from Monday to Friday, going through and then getting to spend the better part of the weekend getting to try and see how we can be able to reproduce and also replicate the results. So yeah, that's how I'm spending my time period at home, getting to deliver my work, also make my contributions at Omdena, and also now forming that habit of getting to read a research paper every week.
Personally, I tried to change my routine, so I subscribed to a 4-week meditation program with someone I know, and I would say it works well for now. Yeah, because it's a difficult time for everyone, and I was working more and more, and at the moment I felt like yeah, I had to, you know, take a a step back and try some things I didn't try before because I didn't have time. Or, yeah.
Well, thank you, Julia. By the way, Omdena, as you might can guess, it's also inspired a bit by meditation. You have the first two letters, but that might be a story for another time. So stepping back, okay, taking some time off, re-energizing, becoming clear about priorities. If somebody else wants to add to this, a tip or a trick, I see we have a few questions.
Yeah.
If not, I will go into the questions.
Yeah, possibly my 2 cents here. I don't know how much it would help, but it has helped me gain some structure to my daily activities. Two things I do, religiously, uh, generally not just specifically for the current situation, but generally also is to follow, and I see the importance very much in the current situation. Two things. First thing is when I come to work every day in the morning, let's say I do the morning routines and fresh up, and I come and open up the laptop. First thing I do is I open up a notepad and list out the things that I want to accomplish today. So there's always a lot of things that is on our mind, but the important things and the urgent things are not really that huge. So just list out few things that I must accomplish today, and also list out one or two items that would align to my long-term goal. Let's say about learning about particular reinforcement learning, let's say, or solving a particular long-term customer issues or something of that sort. So I would list on that. And second thing I do is in my calendar, I block a couple of hours as a focus time. So there is no meetings, no calls, no chat, no emails, nothing of that sort. The 2 hours is for me to focus on what I think is important for me to move further in my career, in my life, and things like that. So that 2 hours I dedicate myself, and that I think is helping me a lot.
When working from home, the work-life balance can be very imbalanced. So I am of the mind that what Merle just mentioned, having blocks to think and time to yourself, is one of the greatest things you can do. After a month and a half in lockdown, what really gets me going is creativity. So I've used this time to start new projects, to see how I can apply data to existing projects that might not have so much to do with data at this point. And I feel this is helping me psychologically, but also making me a better data scientist. And to touch upon this, we all know difficult times are coming. We don't know how difficult. The data is not there yet. Once it is, we'll be the first to know. But I think it's quite important to use this time wisely and to prepare for what's coming. And if I can say something about like having lived in a country that just came out of a 10-year financial crisis, number one skill for me is resilience. You have to be vigilant. You have to understand the world around you, and you have to be ready to make the changes needed in order to have a better life ahead.
Thank you, Anastasis. Thank you a lot. Also, thank you for sharing. Those are some very valuable tips, and we are all in a similar, still different situation. And I think in these times we can learn a lot from each other, and we can help each other. So I'm very glad that you all joined and that you shared these big perspectives and experiences. And before I close this webinar, unfortunately, there's one more question, which is it possible to apply for an Omdena task and not to be taken? What is expected of potential collaborators? How can I improve my chances of being accepted? So in terms of Omdena, we are running different challenges, and we get usually a lot of applications, which means that at this point we can't give a space for everyone, but we have a short list where you can apply for a project, and if you are not taking this time, then you are being notified for a future project or challenge. So it doesn't mean to not get a response or not be taken by the first time that you are not going to be able to work on a project. It just means not this time. So we have this short list, and we have more projects coming up in the next few weeks. So if you are interested in checking Omdena out, then you can check our homepage, omdena.com. We are on social media. You can just Google us and you will find us. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a message in the live chat on our homepage or via LinkedIn, whatever you feel is most comfortable. And I think those are all questions. So I can only say again, thank you. Thank you for all joining in. Thank you to all panelists. Thank you for sharing your perspectives. And it's been a very enjoyable journey. And all the people listening, no matter where you're from this place, I wish you a good day, a good morning, a good evening, or a good night, and all the best. And thanks again for joining. And maybe we see each other in one of our projects. So thank you again, and I would say bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All the best.
Thank you all.
Bye.